Okay, hello everybody, and hello to everybody who is listening after the event. Thanks very much to Becky, to Dean, to Ilya and to Robert for very kindly offering themselves up to talk about their interim projects here at the Fisher Show and Tell session. They've all got very, very interesting projects ongoing, and they're now at the end of block 1 of their FMP. So they're going to share, they're each going to talk for between 15 and 20 minutes, and do please, presenters too, write down questions or any questions that you want to might pose to the presenters at the end of the session. We'll canter through a series of 15 to 20 minute presentations, and at the end we'll come together and we'll ask questions, hopefully, to everybody who's presented. So welcome Becky. Becky's got the presenter's reign, and she's going to be first up with her project, Heuristic Study.
Thank you very much. So first of all, the title, A Heuristic Study, it's just a working title. I go backwards and forwards on what to call this project and cannot for the life of me decide. So if anybody has any input in that towards the end, feel free to jump in there. Basically, I came to the MA with an idea of exactly what I wanted to do for my project, and it was a long-term project where I was looking at alternative education. So the word heuristic I found was, after I'd already started the MA, I think I was like halfway through the first block. And the term heuristic means, as you can see, enabling a person to discover or learn something for themselves. So I came across this word whilst I was looking at different things to do with pedagogy and how children learn and where they learn, and came across this term. And when I first started using it, I was talking about literally how children learn, and how when you have a child in an educational setting and they learn in a specific way where they are being taught by a teacher, and how lots of families, when they don't have their children in school and they home educate them, they are educated in a different way where the parents act as facilitators to a child's learning rather than actually being the teacher. So that's where this term came from. And along the course of the MA in each block, I've ended up calling, some of it retrospectively actually, calling the different blocks different names that are all to do with the term heuristic. As I went along the project in each module, it became clearer to me that this term wasn't actually to do with the children and what they were learning and what they were discovering. It actually became a term that I started to more think about being linked to the parents and what we're learning. So you take your children out of school and it's this massive leap of faith, basically, that you're going to be able to help them learn. And it became a term that I connected instead to the way that, not only the way that the parents are learning about the journey that they're on with their children, but also the heuristic term became about the project in itself, of how when people come to it and the public come to this project and they look at it, this enabling them to discover something for themselves. I don't want it to be just, here, this is what home education is, or this is what alternative schools are. I want it to be that they're able to look at the images and to look at the text that goes with the images, and then come to a decision, or not even a decision, but just, it's about educating people, isn't it? So what I did was, this, I think mine might be a little bit different to other people's, how I've presented this. So every single block of the MA, I am, for my FMP, I'm taking work from each of my block to create a new body of work, basically. So what I did was, when I came to the MA, in my first module, in Positions and Practice, I looked at 3 different areas of alternative education. And originally, it was going to be that I was going to look at all of these different areas throughout the MA, and I wanted to, at the start, I wanted to produce a book that had different chapters in. So 1 chapter on home education, 1 chapter on alternative schools, 1 chapter on groups that children go to when they're out of school. So I don't want to call them school groups, but if you think like after school clubs, that kind of thing. And then 1 on world schooling, which is where children and their parents travel around the world, and they're educated along the way based on the place where they're staying at the time. So in Positions and Practice, I photographed my own children, my own family, where all 4 of our children at the time were home educated. And as well as that, I photographed, if I come down here. So these photographs of our children when we were travelling around the UK at the time. A couple of these photographs, like this one, are from a learning group that my youngest son attended at the time. And then these ones here are from a family when we went to Arles. I photographed a family in the south of France that were world schooling, that were travelling. They'd left America, sold all of their possessions, and then were travelling around the world with their children, educating them along the way. So the reason I did this was I wanted to see how I wanted to photograph what I wanted to photograph. And a lot of it stemmed from my own family and our own journey. However, I wanted to involve these other things along the way. In my next module, and this is going to be, this one forms a major part of what my FMP is. So I wanted to create a project that looked at all the different ways that people home educate. So the different people that do it, the different family dynamics, the financial spectrums that they traverse. It was actually born from a comment that somebody said to me, without naming names, during the first module, where somebody said, that's a very white middle class thing to do, isn't it? And I thought that is common perceptions of home education and what it is. So what I wanted to do was try and photograph the different things, the different people that did it. Now, something funny happened here because what I came to realise was, although there are a couple of families in this project that are not white, I live in Cornwall, and as much as you want to show diversity, there is not a huge amount of diversity in Cornwall, which really bothered me, but you can't lie and make your project into something that it isn't. The other thing that I found was, just like in our family as well at the time, bear in mind this was before lockdown and furlough, most of this were mothers that were doing the home educating. There was not a lot of dads that were around. Mostly the dads were out working. I found that really interesting. But again, you can't alter the story if you're just photographing what's there. So I set out purposely, although it's called home education, it's a bit of a misnomer really, because a lot of it happens outside of the home. But I wanted to be very clear on the parameters of this. I wanted the majority of these photographs to be taken inside the home to show different ways that people learn within the home. If I had just said, we'll take photos anywhere, I would have ended up with all different kinds of stuff going on. And I think I wanted to have some continuity there. So whilst I'm on this, I'm just going to explain a bit about my FMP and what I've decided. The project was just too big. It was too large. There's loads of it. It's going to be going on for years and years, basically. So I decided that for my FMP module, I am going to concentrate on two specific parts of my project. The one of them is my own family's home education journey, and the second is the families within Cornwall that I photographed. So the majority, although I'm still photographing our family, the majority of the photographs that are going to be used for my final project, I've actually already taken. I found, whilst I was doing my MA, that I wouldn't say I took far too many photos, I don't think I did, but I did not have enough time each module to give to the project that I had done. The project was much bigger than the module time allowed for, if that makes sense. So each one of these projects, I should have had 6 months working on them or 12 months working on them, but I didn't have time. So I chose whatever this is, 30 photos, 25 photos. And actually what I've done now is gone right back and I've looked at all the thousands of photos that I've had from this project, just from this module. So I photographed like 18 families and I've gone back to their original photos rather than trying to rush to come up with the photos and to choose the photos. I've tried to go through it slowly and actually think about what I'm trying to show. And mostly this is about diversity of education, diversity in the way that people educate. So some people will do it sat at a table recreating school and they will follow a national curriculum, and some people will do what's known as unschooling or child-led learning, which is totally down to what the child is interested in at the time, and as the parent you are a facilitator that helps your child find the information that they need to learn what they want to learn, basically. So I've kind of rewound on the whole project and gone almost right back to the start for my FMP. So going on to the next one. Right, informing context. We were in lockdown. I went right back to my own family again because we were in lockdown. And at the time, my second son was doing GCSEs and my oldest son was doing A-levels. These are all too small to read to you, but basically these are all quotes from like Gavin Williamson, who is the oh my god, I've forgotten his top job title, educational person for the government. That's his official job title now. And Boris Johnson, where they were basically saying, don't worry about it, every kid's going to get their GCSEs. And then at the last count, and there is no official count of this, but at the last count we have worked out that there's about 5,000 home educated children who did not get their GCSEs or A levels, even though the government promised that every child would be able to get them. So when I was doing this, I started to think about, and this is coming into FMP, the I don't know what the word is for it, but basically the extra strength that these quotes and these pieces of information and government legislation could bring to my project. That I'm not just talking about what these people are doing or what we're doing. I'm talking about the whole kind of how your life is when you have to go through this process and have all this information going on around you. So for the FMP, I had definitely decided that I wanted to include some of this information. Okay, so the last one. In the last module, I photographed 5 families that were not home educating before lockdown and then decided to continue home educating afterwards, or were thinking about it. As it happens, 2 of the families ended up sending their children back to school and the others were deregistered. In my, oh my God, what's the word for it? You know, your final piece that you hand in. God, my brain's gone numb. That final piece that you hand in anyway, I decided to make an interactive PDF. I wanted practice basically for the FMP, so I decided to do that. And I included in it, what these little squares are in the corner, is audio of these families. So this one, when you click on it, I can't show you now, but the audio is of the girls playing like in the field that we were in and learning about the animals that are there. In this one, it's the family playing hide and seek. In this one, it's the mom talking about why she decided to home educate and why she decided to put her kid back in school. And then in this one, it's talking about autonomous learning and the child learning to read without actually being taught to read. Very interesting. It's on my website if you want to go and have a look. Anyways, so I decided that I wanted to use audio from this. So the images on their own, I love them. I think they're great, but they needed the extra that comes from the audio as well. So this is what my FMP is basically. Collate all of the images taken during the FMP of my family and also of all the home educating families in Cornwall, and then record audio of both myself and the other families' parents discussing why they chose to home educate, how they decided to do it, why they decided to do it, and how they educate their children as well. And so I am going to create who knows what at the moment. I'm either going to have it on a website as a project that people can go to look at, or as an app, or I'm going to do it as an exhibition. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to decide. And I think a lot of that will come down to lockdown and what happens with that, and how I want to do it. Research for the FMP. So if I've already got all my photos, what on earth am I spending all my time doing? And the answer is I'm reading, and tweeting like a mad thing, apparently. I have been listening to, at the moment, the Education Committee run by this man here, Robert Halfon, is doing an inquiry into home ed. And I'll try not to go on about it too much because I'll get on my soapbox. But basically, my opinion of this man is that he's not very intelligent whatsoever. He doesn't even know the laws to do with home education, yet he is trying to create change for home educators and the way in which they home educate and how. He is trying to get each child that is home educated to be on register and to be attached and linked to a school that can assess them. I could go into a whole load of stuff about why that's problems. It's all on my website if anyone's interested. But basically, what I've decided to do is take the information that they're using and attach it to images. So a big thing that they are trying to say is these children need to be on a register because they're a safeguarding risk, because they're not seen, they're invisible. Did anybody see the Dispatches Channel 4 thing? Invisible children in the UK or something. And there's this media rhetoric at the moment or it has been going on for a long time, trying to say that home educated children are at risk because they're not seen by teachers. This is a page of the report. It's the minutes from it. Basically, what I want to do is screen prints of quotes from like this, from out of the inquiry, where I'll give you the case of Victoria, her name was, and it says the NSPCC. So in their report, or in this inquiry, they were using this girl to say that it was a safeguarding risk. When we've actually fact-checked this information, it says the NSPCC was forced to make a public apology to her family for falsely stating that she was home educated. Quote, "I would like to apologise for the offence this has caused. Clearly, there was no connection between home education and Victoria's tragic death, as she was not being educated at home." And this continually happens where they're quoting things, the media, the government, that is incorrect. So I was asked to join a research, an academic research group where everybody in it that's in there is either a solicitor or has an interest in academic research to do alternative education. And this is a joint letter that we wrote to the select committee about why it was that their information was not accurate, and we supplied them with up-to-date freedom of information requests that we did to councils to find out how many children in their boroughs were being home educated, and it did not link at all with what was being cited by recent reports that have been done by the Children's Commissioner and Children's Services and stuff. Sorry, trying to wrap this up. So basically, the last part of this is that I have created, in addition to my images, I created a project where I have asked families from home educating groups on Facebook. This is the previous one that I do, but just to give you an idea. This is my post basically saying, I want to create a photographic collage representation, slideshow, whatever, of home educated children and why it's absolutely complete rubbish that they're invisible and not seen. And what I wanted people to do was to take a photo of every single place that their children were seen during the week from Monday through till Sunday, and then I was going to collate it. And I wanted information on where they had been. So your child can be seen at the supermarket, they can be seen at the doctor's, at the dentist, at the optician, when they're out for a walk, when their grandparents come round, on a Zoom, it doesn't matter. And I'm actually just collating all of them at the moment. This was one that I did in the second or third module, a similar one where on a certain Thursday at 1 o'clock, everyone took a photo of what they were doing so that I could show the variation in home education. Whereas the one that I'm going to produce that will look a lot like this is going to show a variation of the different places where home educated children are seen. Some of which are known to their local authority because they've been deregistered from school, and some of which, or quite a large proportion of which, are not known to the local authority because of the fact that they were never registered in school, so the local authorities don't know about them. And just trying to illustrate that whether they are known or not, they're still out in their community being seen by people, basically. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I have no idea how it will come together at all. I'm quite open to how it comes together in the end. And at the moment, how it comes together right now is not important because I'm still trying to find out everything that I want to put together and how I want it to put together. It might end up that it's actually just a photo book that I do on me and our children and our home education, but I've got these three things that I, at the moment, in my head, all linked together. Whether they all end up being in the final artefact or not, who knows? We shall see, basically, is the end of that. Thank you very much. Sorry, I went a bit over.
Thanks very much, Ilya. Sorry, Becky. Ilya's next. Because I think that one of my questions was really about the sort of campaigning nature of how the project was developing. And that seems interestingly sort of diametrically opposed to the previous work, which was much more about a sort of very idyllic view, in a way, of homeschooling. This now is the project seems to be much more looking at kind of public perceptions of homeschooling as a sort of major part of the project.
I think, just to answer that really quickly, I don't want to go into anyone else's time, sorry, I will try to do it quickly, but maybe, not I haven't explained it properly, but it's a very short amount of time actually, isn't it, in the end, to try and explain. When I present these images, if I present them as an exhibition, I've already got this in my head, that these idyllic images, that is what home education is for the families. And I very much want to show these beautiful, aesthetic, ethereal images of home education, and next to them, the quotes and the articles and the things that people are saying about home education to highlight this juxtaposition between what it actually is compared to what people are saying or questioning about it. And that almost is my campaigning, is the fact that what people are saying and what their perceptions are two very different things. But yes, it definitely has gone more onto a campaigning kind of side since last module, really, because of my son not getting he did get his GCSEs in the end, but lots of children didn't. And because of all of that, I think I got involved a lot more in the whole political side of it within the MA. So